Hello, welcome back to the MR Running Pains podcast. This is episode number 83 with my special guest, Mercedes Siegle-Gaither, and I am so happy to welcome her to the podcast. I've gotten to know Mercedes over the past few months here since not quite the start of this year, but Mercedes has come such a long way, and I am excited. She had a phenomenal race at the Lake Sonoma 50 miler. Most of you will know that race from out in California. It's a spectacular race. Mercedes, I will not ruin it, but she had an outstanding finish out there. We get to talk about her and her race and everything in the process. It's been fun getting to know and train Mercedes. Mercedes came to me for coaching. Her boyfriend is Morgan Elliott, who I had been coaching for a few months prior to her coming on board. So I really enjoyed getting to watch her growth and see the success at this event. It was phenomenal. Mercedes was also part of my crew at Hard Rock. So I got to have the pleasure of getting to know her even better in person out there at Hard Rock, which obviously, as you've heard in my podcast, was a very emotional finish for me. So I am glad she was a part of that. Also, we had the great time of spending the day together while Morgan was racing up at the Ragged Mountain 50K in New Hampshire. Real fun day out there. So it's a pleasure to have her on the podcast. Really enjoyed this interview. We did have some technical difficulties. I am switching platforms due to those technical difficulties. So my apologies if we have some static and bad connection here. We did switch over to a different platform in the midst of recording, so please forgive my crude editing. But I really appreciate Mercedes for her patience and getting through this interview with me, because it was trying with the technology. So my apologies for that again. But again, hopefully that is going to be resolved, changing recording platforms going forward. So without the rest of my excuses, here is Mercedes. Hello, Mercedes. How are you?
Hello. I'm doing well. How about you?
It's just delightful. It's wonderful to see you. It's been a few weeks.
Yeah, it's good to be able to see you.
And we have quite the story to go through with Mercedes. But Mercedes, why don't you start by just introducing yourself? Who are you? What do you do? All that good stuff.
Yeah, I'm Mercedes Siegle-Gaither. I'm 29 and I'm a forester with the Colorado State Forest Service out in Colorado. So I moved to Salida, about 7,000 feet in elevation in March, and I like running a lot. So yeah, I've been kind of just going with the flow.
Beautiful. When did you start your running passion?
Oh boy. Well, so in high school, I decided I was going to do cross country, and I ran 5 miles, and I was like, that's awful. I'm never going to do that again. Why would anyone do that to themselves? So yeah, I didn't really run that much. I did some soccer in high school, but then in undergrad, I actually studied abroad in Newcastle, Australia, and I was about a mile from the beach. I'm like, well, I have to get to the beach every day. How am I going to do this? I hate biking. I don't have a bike. I don't have a car. So I just kind of picked up running, which I just remember in undergrad, like every other freshman, was on the little elliptical machine, and there was an indoor track, and there were these two twins, and they would run for like 45 minutes. I'm like mind blown by them. I'm like, I wish I could be like them someday. And so, I don't know, I picked it up in Australia, and being able to go hop in the ocean and run to the eucalyptus forest every day was awesome. And there were sea cliffs, and I realized I was seeing so much and meeting so many more people than all of my roommates. So it kind of just expanded from there.
Right on. Where did you grow up?
Wisconsin.
And we have quite the entourage that hails from Wisconsin on the trail and ultra scene. Some of them being one specifically being one of your heroes. Who would that be?
Wait, Courtney's not from Wisconsin. She's from Minnesota.
Minnesota. I'm sorry.
They're kind of the same.
No, I don't want to do that to everybody. There's, I'll get a bunch of dislikes on the podcast because of that. So my bad. I was thinking that she was from Wisconsin, but that's right. But anyway, No. And so didn't work out in college, but not college, didn't work out in high school, but you got into it kind of collegiately and not running for college, but just running in college for yourself. And abroad, no less. And you continue to go abroad because you told me stories about where you just were, which was, what island were you on again?
So St. Croix is in the Virgin Islands, which technically is a U.S. territory, so it's kind of not abroad, but everyone thinks it is. So it's kind of fun because it's also way down there. It's by Puerto Rico, and it's really close to the equator. I forgot about that, planning our vacation there in August. So it actually worked out really well. It was awesome heat training for Sonoma, not realizing how hot Sonoma was going to be.
That is surprising. So let's kind of complete the journey here. So you start running in Australia. What got you into racing?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I read Born to Run like everyone else. I have it tattooed on my foot. I also met Barefoot Ted, side note, the other day. We went into this little thrift shop in Leadville. It's a really great place. The guy who runs it he does burro racing. And so I walk in there and we're looking at Luna sandals, and Barefoot Ted was there for the Leadville 100. And he touched my foot and he helped me put the shoes on and fit them. So that was super cool. Complete distraction though. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, racing. So
racing.
I did my first marathon, which was a trail marathon, and I didn't realize there was a difference, which makes a lot of sense after you do it. But then that kind of stemmed into, I just loved how beautiful it was, and I kind of started doing road marathons after, because I wanted to use it as an excuse to see new places. So I was trying to kind of do a marathon in every state, but I was also kind of doing ultras. I started doing 50K shortly after, so I was using it as like a little go-between. But I realized road marathons are awful because you have to run really fast, and it's hot, and it's just a lot of pavement in cities, which cities are great, but yeah, I realized trails were more for me.
Right on. Did you start, what was your progression to the marathon? I don't suspect your first race was the marathon, or at least I hope it wasn't. Well, maybe it was.
So I did 13 miles just for fun while I was in Australia, and I was like, cool, I did a half marathon, what's next? So I kind of jumped up to that. I think like freshman, sophomore year, I did some 5K color runs, which were probably pretty embarrassing now that I think about it. But they were fun. So I think, my first one was a trail marathon in Wisconsin. It was super fun. And I think I got lost a little bit. So I ran over 26 miles, and I got a ride back to the start. So they still gave me a medal, but they didn't qualify me for awards. So I was like, well, I ran almost 30 miles. I might as well try a 50K now.
And what was your first 50K?
It was the North Face endurance run in Wisconsin, and it was beautiful. It's in kind of the Kettle areas in Wisconsin where it's really bluffy and green, and I wish they still did those races. Yeah,
I know. Yeah, I raced the North Face New York, which is where I grew up, and that was it really brought me on some of the trails that I grew up on, so that was really cool, and some of the trails I'd never seen before too. So I do miss those as well. Yeah, and I'm sure many people miss that. San Francisco, the Bay Area. That was like, I wish I had a chance to have done that one before they closed it. But
yeah, we were just there. It was beautiful. I would have loved to do that. Maybe they'll bring it back.
Yeah, I hope so. They had talks of doing something, but who knows? So you ran your 50K, and you kept progressing, right? You went beyond 50K, right? You had a 50 miler in there somewhere before Lake Sonoma?
Yeah, I did like 750 to 55 Ks. I did my first 50K at elevation. I got my butt kicked in California. It was the Harding Hustle. First 15 miles are like up a mountain, which I didn't realize elevation was a thing. So by the time I got down, my hips were shot and hikers were passing me, and I called my mom and I was crying a little bit.
Oh.
But yeah, after that I realized you need to train. So yeah, I hopped into the North Face 50 miler in Wisconsin while they were still doing that, and my goal was just to finish. And my buddy who paced me was like, you did really well. I got top 10 female. And nice. So I didn't see that coming. And so a year later, I did my first 100K, which was the American Birkie. I think most people know it as a Nordic ski race. Thousands of people come from all over the world. Right. But yeah. I did the trail run. And normally it's single track, super fun. But because of COVID, they put it on the ski trail. So it was just like constant undulating grassy terrain that was just a little bit too long to be fun to run on. But yeah, that went really well. Only like 40 people showed up and I won. So COVID worked in my favor for that.
And you trained for those though? And by training for those, what did that entail?
Just running whenever I had free time.
Did you even have like a plan?
Not really. Try to do long runs when I had some free time. Try to do core. That was pretty much it. But it helped because at the time I was a park ranger and I did some wildlife biology, so I always was hiking around the mountains in Colorado. So even if I wasn't running, I still kind of got that aerobic training in, and working at altitude was huge because I spent 4 weeks in Leadville hiking anywhere from 5 to 10 miles a day. So that helped. I set my first half marathon PR and I can't beat it. So that's one of my sneaky goals.
Right on. You have a very adventurous spirit. You are constantly traveling, going out, running. If you were to say, to especially the females that listen, what makes you feel so secure, or is there just no inhibition? Do you feel any worries when you go out and run? Is there anything? Because a lot of times we hear that, from, especially the female population, that they're worried for their safety to going out on the trails. Is there something that made you feel more comfortable? Or is it just you grew up in that environment? What would you say?
I think it's definitely a combination. I mean, being from Wisconsin, I kind of learned to think the best of people. We kind of have that Midwestern friendliness, they call it, more or less. But other than that, I mean, being a park ranger kind of helped. I realized that it's not generally the animals that are an issue. The animals are going to leave you alone if you leave them alone. So, I mean, if anything happened, I'm like, I went out with a bang, like a cougar got me or something, it'd be a good story.
Yes.
Maybe I hope that I would survive it. But I don't know, other than that, like, not a lot of people run where I run, so that helps. And like, if someone's going to steal someone, they're probably not going to go up in the mountains. And I'd like to think I could just run away off trail and they couldn't catch me. But I mean, it's constantly kind of in the back of my head. I'm always thinking, like, what if? Like, being prepared and just being aware of your surroundings. And then when I did study abroad, you go over the basics. Like, don't look like a tourist. Don't, like, put yourself in uncomfortable situations. So I think all those things over time kind of helped me out. And I've been having good experiences. So hopefully I can continue down that path.
Nice. That's great. Absolutely. Is there any advice that you would give to, perhaps anyone that, and it doesn't have to be females, it can be everybody, that have that kind of fear to go out on the trail? Your recommendation about wildlife, because that is a big concern for many people, is they're worried about the wildlife. But, for safety reasons, like, anything you can say, like anything you think of that planning might help?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, especially if you're just getting into trail running and you're just learning an area, kind of look for local running communities and groups, or find some girls to go out with even. I just learned about Trail Sisters. Gina is kind of the founder of it, and she's right down the road in Buena Vista, and so we kind of got to talk to her and hear her story, and it sounds like an awesome way. I think they're always looking for ambassadors to start new groups in the areas, so if there's not something existing in your community, maybe you can take some initiative and start that. Just reach out to other people. And then we're super lucky that we have a run group in Salida that meets Mondays and Wednesdays, and it's a super great group. We wait for each other at the tops of the hills, and we go run up this 500-foot S every week. And so it kind of gets you out there meeting new people. And then, once you meet that community, you don't have to go to the run groups. Maybe you can reach out to them and go on your long runs together and kind of at least use that to get to know the trails in the area and the people. Kind of that sense of community is a huge bonus too.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And back to kind of your racing. I didn't get to meet you, but I got to learn that you existed at the Bandera 50K, because Morgan was racing the 100K. And to complete that story, so people understand where we're coming from, Morgan Elliott, who I coach both Morgan and Mercedes, they are a couple. And I started training Morgan right before Bandera. And then he was telling me his girlfriend's going to run the 50K. So that's where I learned of Mercedes. But how did that go for you? How did Bandera go?
I have to redeem myself. It was so bad. So Tejas Trails puts it on, and they kind of pride themselves as being one of the best smart courses. And they're right. Like, it's 2 loops for the 100K, 1 loop for the 50K. We were out there early, testing out the course. We knew where all the aid stations were. I still got lost. So I need to redeem myself. I ran an extra 2 miles. I was still 11th female somehow. But I started off chasing this one girl who I'm a super fangirl of. Her name's Lottie. I just got to see her at Sonoma. But anyways, I could smell her hairspray the first 9 miles. I was catching her. Well, I was slowly falling back. But I was super excited. I think I was in the top 5. And then basically after a couple miles in, it was pretty cold. It got colder. It rained all day. It was windy. It didn't get above 37 degrees. It snowed. It hailed. There were puddles. There was a lot of mud. It was to the point where every step forward you take in the mud, you kind of went backwards. So I was exhausted, especially with my extra 2 miles. But then, of course, it's hailing. I have my hat down. I took the first arrow I saw, which was the wrong arrow. And I ended up doing a loop, and I came back, and the aid station had no idea that this was my second time there. And I was like, hey, guys, can you help me? And so, yeah, I need to redeem myself from that. So I figured maybe do the 100K at some point and do an extra lap for fun, on purpose. But it went relatively well for kind of being a super last minute race, but it was a good get my butt in gear sort of race.
Yeah. And so we started working together a bit after that. But your season, the dynamic of the season changed. Your goal focus changed. We had initially talked about possibly doing a 100-miler. And potentially being, was it Sangre de Cristo, right?
Yeah, because it's local. It'd be perfect.
Right. Yeah. So we initially talked about that, but then Sonoma came into the picture. How did that evolve?
That was because my friend Zach Friedley, he's an awesome athlete as well, kind of sent me this link. He's like, hey, they open up 50 more entrants for women. I'm like, cool. Maybe I'll just email him and see if I get in. And then I did. I'm like, well, I got in. I have to do the race now. And Morgan wasn't any help. He's like, yeah, it's an awesome race. You should do this race. And then all of a sudden we paid for it, and we're like, what did we just get ourselves into? How are we going to get there? It's 19 hours driving. But luckily flights were cheap, and we're like, let's just go with it. And the whole time I'm still trying to figure out what my distance is. I raced some 5Ks and some 10Ks, and I'm like, they kind of suck. You have to run really fast. I did a marathon. Still trying to figure it out. So I was like, well, maybe the longer distance will do me better. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
And Lake Sonoma is a very storied race. Historically, it's one of the faster races. It used to be a golden ticket, and hopefully it will be again in the future with the way things change for the qualifiers for Western. But what did you think about the race prior to the race? Was it something that excited you?
Yeah, I had no idea what to expect because it says 50 miles, 10,500 feet of vertical gain. And so I'm just thinking, what is that compared to Colorado? Colorado, you go up and then you go down. And then Sonoma is just rolling. And I was looking at the vert and I'm like, I have no idea how to race this. You run the whole time. So that was kind of a good learning curve. And then there's a ton of videos out there, so I was kind of learning what the course looked like ahead of time, which I think was pretty helpful. But going into it, I still remember the first 2 miles, I met this girl named Natalie, and we ended up running like 22 miles together. And I was like, I don't know how to race this. Those girls are going out too fast, so I'm just going to pretend I don't see them, not bomb down this hill. It's nice and cool out. Like, I want to run fast, but I don't think it's a good idea. So it was just kind of a learning experience the entire race.
Yeah, right on. Well, and leading up to it, obviously, we changed your training around from being, just go out and run and make sure you get a long run in and do some core. What was like the biggest change for you? What components did we add that you felt gave you the biggest gains?
Well, little did I know running when it's super hot out was really helpful. I just kind of got used to it after a while, and I would always complain about how hot out it was, but I know I just kind of started running with nutrition. I'm like, well, one of the biggest things is just training your gut. So every time I just eat gels, and I didn't want them, but I was like, this will be good for me, just deal with it. And I was practicing a lot with the liquid Roctan. I'm like, just drink it. And I started tricking myself, like, you get thirsty, so if you're drinking your nutrition, you're just kind of tricking yourself into more calories. It's not going to hurt. So I think that was huge. And then just kind of having that comfortableness running those long runs and those hills and being like, I'm just going to get ready, have everything I need and more, go out and have fun with it, and then just hope for the best.
Right. Yeah. And we actually changed too, because you did the Audi Power of 4 50K. We forgot to mention that part. So we went from a huge mountain race, which used to be a sky run, and then transitioned you to, not that Sonoma's flat, you said 10,500 feet, which is a respectable amount of elevation gain for a 50-mile race. But, it's not quite the mountain race that Audi is. So how did you feel between, transitioning from Audi to Lake Sonoma?
I was so confused. So they have about the same elevation gain, but a 20-mile difference. But right. For Audi, you're just going up a black diamond ski hill, down it, and then up 3 more and back down. So there was a lot of hiking for Audi. And so you get to run downhill. It's less steep because you have longer mileage to do the vert down or the decline. So I was just getting used to like hiking the hard parts and running the downhill, which I think was kind of a really good training run for Sonoma. So then if there were too many hills, I was just like, okay, keep my heart rate, make sure I'm not overdoing it, I'm not going to blow up or bonk, and just kind of walk the harder parts and then just run the downhills but not bomb them. So I think it was a really good training run, and it kind of taught me how to kind of control my pace a little bit more.
Good.
And then before that one is kind of why I started working on my digestive system a little more. I did the run through time in Salida, which is a trail marathon, and I got my butt kicked. I ate 1 gel. I couldn't eat anything else, so I did an entire marathon with 1 gel. I was dying inside. And then I thought it was going to be warm enough and the sun was going to come up, so I show up with short sleeves and shorts, and it's 32 degrees out. By the time I got to mile 5, I couldn't feel my fingers or my arms, so that probably didn't help the digestion. And so after that, I somehow came in 7th female. I don't know, maybe everyone else was hurting that day too, but I was like, the whole time I'm like, I'm not a runner, I can't do this anymore. So at the end, I'm like, I'm going to get a coach. I don't want to feel that awful during a race ever again. So
I remember when we first started too, and we were talking about nutrition, and you were like, you want me to take how many calories per hour? And he said, I don't think I can do that. And so, yeah, so it was exactly like you said, training that gut, because, you came from, like you said, one gel over the course of a marathon to now we're trying to do, 200 plus calories an hour. So we changed a lot with that. But you also, when I looked at your training, you really turned a corner after Audi. I think Audi gave you a new piece of fitness that I didn't see prior to it, because all of a sudden your paces dropped, and you were also you're in St. Croix, which even though it was super hot, like you were still, your paces started dropping dramatically. Which, again, in Salida, you're 7,000, was it 9,000 feet above you? Is that right?
Yeah, we're about 7,000.
Yeah, and then it goes up because you always have that
Yeah,
that one mountain.
we have the collegiate peaks right there, so we can go up to 14,000, and then our main little peak goes up to 9,000 pretty quick.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to, the 9,000-foot peak, because that's what I always see on training peaks.
My
That
little
9,000.
spiral.
Yes, a little spiral. So, but I mean, even so, your paces, like you really did, and it was a well timed. You were like, I want to do this one, and it just so happened to be really well timed for Lake Sonoma. Because again, like when we were doing Audi, I don't even think when we were planning for Audi, Lake Sonoma wasn't even in the picture just yet. So we were talking about Lake Sonoma, and you had already begun to say that you had run the first 22 miles with another woman. Was it Abby?
Natalie,
Excuse me. And well, let's go back to prior to that. How many people were in the race?
I think over 300 were supposed to start. It was kind of hard to track how many actually started, though.
And did you all start together as a mass start?
Yeah, so that was exciting. That was one of the first races that's kind of been doing that this year.
Right on. Did they have any kind of COVID restrictions at all?
Not really.
Okay, that's interesting, because it's California, and California has really been one of the strictest. So I would have thought they would have had some kind of restrictions, but I mean that's cool.
That doesn't get in trouble.
No. They I'm sure they went by the rules of California, and I'm not suggesting that there is anything wrong with what they did. I was just curious because, like I said, California has always been one of the stricter states. Now, Sonoma, it's south of Tahoe, but was there any like smoke or anything like that?
There's a little bit, but not nearly as bad as most places. I think they're close enough to the coast that wind pattern was keeping it away. So
nice. Good. And I'm sure you looked ahead at the field. Were you able to look at the entrance list?
Oh, it was all over the place. Treeline Journal did a race preview too, and they're like, we have no idea what to expect because it was so many rollovers from COVID, and then having postponed it from April to September. Like a lot of the girls, I think, had done UTMB or some other big races, and so they didn't come this time around. But
right on, gotcha. But that said, who was there? Did you recognize any of the women?
Yeah, Keely was there, of course.
Nice.
She absolutely crushed it. And then Lottie was there. I don't know her last name. It starts with a Z. But she's actually one of Pat Reagan's coachees. And so I was super excited to meet her. She just got picked up by Solomon too. And then I recognized someone named Cassie Scallon, who's a past winner.
Nice.
And I think she was there. And then some other girls that were in the race preview who I met either at the group run. There was a Sarah Thatcher. I met her during group run. She was in the preview. And then a couple other girls, I found out who they were after when they were on the podium. They were on the preview too. So
nice.
It was fun.
And you said, yeah, no, that's wonderful. And they did a great job of bringing a tremendous women's field. Just, even numbers wise, having so many females participate, they always do a great job there with that. So that's great. And you had mentioned, she's a Solomon athlete as well. we'll talk about your affiliations in a little bit here. So we'll go back to that just so people know. But I mean, Mercedes does run for Solomon. So that because we hadn't mentioned that. So just want to throw that out there, but we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. So standing on the line, what were you thinking? What were you feeling when you're looking around? And
I was so excited, and it was one of the first races where I knew like a handful of other runners. So it's been super fun going to all these races, recognizing them, and then you get back together, and it's kind of like that community. You haven't seen a good friend for a long time, or you actually get to meet somebody in person. That's been awesome. That was super fun.
Nice. Did you go into it with a nice attitude, a positive attitude? You always have a positive attitude, but by that I mean, were you super nervous, or were you more excited?
I was super excited. I think I have a tendency of getting too much in my head and being too nervous before races, and then my heart rate spikes and I get dizzy and I'm just like, ugh, what am I doing? So one of my big things was make sure I got enough sleep, drink enough water beforehand, and just kind of look at it as a fun race. Because I realized like I used to just run to finish, and that's when I had the most fun. And then once I started trying to be competitive, I was like, there's all this anxiety. So I kind of tried to channel back the fun part, and it was a way more enjoyable experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, that's the way to do it sometimes. Well, most times. That's tremendous. So, all right, you get into the race. The day is, as we kind of talked about earlier, the temperature is supposed to get pretty hot. How quickly did it get hot?
A few hours. So it started at 6:30, and it started in the fog. It was really cool. It's like a 2-mile kind of windy up and down paved road until you hit the trail. And it was just super foggy. So the lead women went out and the guys, and I was like, good, I can't see them. They're in the fog. I'm not going to be tempted to chase them. And then there's just some really good rollers. You just want to like book it. You're feeling good. You're excited. You're finally racing. It's cool out. And I'm like, okay, no, don't do that. And that's when I met Natalie. And we're both kind of like, I don't know what to expect. Like, I think I could do well. I don't want to blow up. And so that was kind of my mindset the majority of the race. And then once we hit the trail, people broke apart pretty quick. It was some solid downhill on the trail. And my biggest thing was just not to blow up my quads, because I've done that before on the downhills, and then just not go too fast. So I kind of joined a pack of guys. There's some pretty funny photos. We were just with like a big group of the guys, and they were pacing pretty well. And then one by one, like someone would go too fast and they disappear, and then another guy would disappear. And me and Natalie were kind of just sticking together the whole time, like picking off these guys. So that was super fun. And then once we got to the first aid station, I kind of snuck away, like filled up my rock tan. I'm like, all right, I'm out of here. And then Natalie caught me again. We're like, okay, we got this. We're just going to stick together for a while. And then we found another guy who paced us for quite a few miles. And we were holding a conversation with him and each other a lot, like probably the majority of the first 20 some miles. And so it's funny because the guy was just like, wow, you guys are so calm and collected back there. And we're like, yeah, this is great. We're having so much fun. And I think someone told us we were in like 6th and 7th, and we're like, oh, that's pretty cool. Didn't expect that. So, and then I think around 10, I noticed she said it was getting hot, and I was like, I don't feel hot yet. So I kept just rolling with it. And then it's about in the middle of the race, you have some hills, but they weren't that bad. They were really dusty and exposed. So once it got hot out, they kind of sucked. But I was just I think I was doing like 840, 830s on the downhills, and then just power hiking up, which I'm super appreciative of Audie. I learned to just power hike. And so when we were kind of in that lead pack too, like the guys would do this weird little slow shuffle. And so I was experimenting with different muscle groups, kind of like pushing my thighs, just fast hiking. And I was keeping up with them. And I was like, I could pass them doing this, but I won't. And so I kind of did that on the majority of the hills because I was passing runners doing that. And so it seemed to be working. And I think it gave the other muscles a little bit of a break.
Good.
But yeah, it got super hot. I was looking at the Strava because it tells you the temperature. And it looks like the back half was 90 degrees at least, the entire back 24 miles or so. It was at least 90. And then they had mentioned to me when I crossed the finish line, I'm like, Skip, what are you doing? Why is it so hot? What is this? That's the race director. He said there's a heat index of at least 99. So I think it was probably above 100 for portions of the race. And going into it, I thought, we'd have a high of 99 or 90. It said 90 for the race is the high. And I thought, maybe 1 or 2, it'll be hot for an hour and it'll go back down. But no, that wasn't the case.
And you had a time chart set up kind of for helping you pace. How did that work? Were you pretty close to it?
I didn't bring it. So I was like, well, let's see what happens. I don't want to be stressed out by this. I was going to laminate it and put it in my pocket.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
That's why we train by effort, because you get to learn what you can do and how you feel, and learn what the body has on the given day. And it sounds like you did. You and Natalie sound like you were running based on how you felt, and amazingly, for that many miles, you both felt very similar.
Yeah, that's crazy. Super helpful. Definitely nice having someone there, which I think was maybe a downfall towards the end, because I was running and I was going through the heat, and Morgan had told me that I was like 5 to 7 minutes back from Lottie, and I was like, no way, she should be ahead of me. I don't know what's happening. And eventually I caught her, but it was really sad because after the race, someone told me that a girl fell and hit her head and got a concussion. And I was like, no, is that why Lottie was walking? And so I felt so bad that I wasn't like, what do you need? Like, she was so awesome when I saw her. She was just like, go get it, you're crushing them. And so that was kind of a bummer. And the whole time I was thinking how like it would be nice to run with someone. Like I saw her and I'm like, oh yes, we can run the rest of the race together. But I think she ended up dropping and going to the emergency room, and they did figure out that she had a concussion. And so then I kept going and slowly picking off guys. I ran with another friend of ours, Kieran, for a while, who blew up. He got 6th or 7th at Pikes Peak's marathon like 2-3 weeks ago. And so I think at that point, I also had the heat catching up with me and was feeling super nauseous. And so I was like kind of using those two things as an excuse to walk more than I should have maybe. But eventually I took off and I just kept slowly but surely picking off a couple of guys here and there. But yeah, it was interesting that heat just did not get any better.
Yeah. Did you change anything as it got hotter? Is there anything you did differently?
Yeah, so I don't remember where I heard this from, but someone had the idea to put ice in your pack. So I wore a Solomon vest, and halfway through the race, I was debating like if it was just going to make me sweat more and I should drop it and do handhelds. But then I tried putting ice and cold water in the back, and it actually stayed cold for a long time. And it might have been super annoying, like sloshing to people, but I felt amazing. So I think that helped temperature regulation a lot.
Good.
And then at mile 25, it was the No Name Flats aid station. Goo was up there and they had these frozen liquid gels. And so I put one under my hat. And then once it was like defrosted a little and I was cooler, I could just eat it. So that was fun. You can pick the cold ones in your pockets, and that's huge too.
Yeah, absolutely. With the bladder, do you flip it upside down and suck the air out?
I didn't even have a bladder. I just put it straight into the pack.
Oh, straight into the pack. I got you.
So it was like slowly, like where the bladder would have went is where I put it. And it was just kind of like slowly leaking, and great.
Very good. Very good. So they had plenty of ice at the aid stations?
Yeah, I think they roughly had enough for 10 pounds per runner is what they said.
Wow.
So I definitely took advantage of that.
So yeah, it's 3,000 pounds of ice. That's a lot of ice. Okay, so that was my race director brain going. I was like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of ice. Oh my god, you have to budget just for the ice. I can't imagine Western states, but so did that help though? Did you feel like you kept your core temperature lower by using the ice and such?
I think it was huge, and I was definitely keeping an eye on my heart rate, just more so to kind of alleviate my thoughts. So like, oh, I'm walking on this hill, right? My heart rate reflects that I want to walk right now. So I wasn't kind of solely relying on it, but then looking back at it, I think my heart rate was too low. I think I used it as a crutch and I should have went a lot harder on those last 12 miles.
Well, and it's always a learning experience, 50 miles it's more of an unfamiliar distance to you. You don't have as much experience with it. So, but I thought it was well, and we'll say how tremendous the race was, but you did great for A, the conditions, B, the lack of experience, and C, for the competition that was there. So, I think that you had a great race. So, how did you feel in the last, 5 to 10 miles? How was that going?
They were awful.
Were they?
I had no idea. I didn't see any people. Like I passed, I think, two guys, and I was just like, yeah, there's probably like 30 guys in front of me. It's just another guy. And then I was just like in no man's land. Like I didn't see another woman for like, I don't know, 5 miles or something like that. And then it was just baking. And I kept thinking that I was closer to the last aid station than I was. But so I think it was the Warm Springs aid station. There's 12 miles left of the race after that. And I thought I had more gels than I did, and I didn't. So then a couple miles later, I was relying on the Roctane from them, but the Roctane was so watered down, I wasn't getting enough nutrients. And I think it messed with my stomach. So I was just having like awful cramping, trying not to throw up because I was like, I need all these nutrients inside of me because I didn't grab any more gels, so I can't puke. And I think a lot of people threw up in that race, but I eventually made it to the last aid station, which was at 4.6. And after that, it was just hot and grueling. And you finish on a huge climb. It's maybe 400 or 500 feet. And I was just walking way more than I wanted to on the flats as well, because it was so hot. It's just a super exposed part. It's like 2:30, 3 o'clock p.m. It was at least 100 degrees. And then the sun's like baking off of these rocks, just reflecting at you. And it was so hot. And I just felt like I was never going to finish. It was the longest 4.5 miles of my life. And I was super excited once I did finally finish.
Did they tell you where you were at that last aid station, place-wise?
Yeah. So it's funny you mentioned that. So they told me I was in fourth place, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. I thought I was in fifth place. And then what happened was, I think second place missed the turnoff. So how it works is you can skip the Island Springs aid station on the way out, because the course is basically an out and back. But on the way in, it's a crucial checkpoint. It adds like 0.4 miles to the race. And you have to, it's said in bold, like you need to go to this aid station and check in or you will get a DNF. And so apparently she was delirious, which I think we were all a little bit at that
Sure.
point. But the flagging, it was like pink and black flagging on the flag. And I remember looking up being like, why is this in the middle of the trail? What does this mean? But I was hunting down that aid station. I knew it was there. So I found the little turn off. And so I think she'd missed the turn off. And I think what they had done was missed her, so because she never went in that aid station. So I was off one. I ended up in fifth. I think they deducted like 15 minutes from her time and put her in third. So that was kind of a bummer. And I was like, yes, I'm fourth. And they're like, you're fifth. So,
well, I mean, I don't know. That's their decision. But from what you just said, it sounds like she should have been DNF'd. I mean, it stinks that, she ran 50 miles or just short of it. But, according to the rules, I mean, this goes back to like a lot of things. But anyhow, that's here nor there. As you said, you got fifth, which is...
And I'm super excited.
Yeah, that is tremendous. And not only fifth, but what place overall?
13th.
13th place overall, which is tremendous. 8 guys and 5 women, or well, 4 women. So that's tremendous. That's a wonderful finish. I was so excited. I'd been texting with Morgan for updates, and he texted me saying she should be in anytime now, and it wasn't soon thereafter that he texted me. So that was so exciting. So you got to finish. I can't imagine what cloud you were on, but just talk about that experience. What was the finish like? Not only your personal finish, but what was the atmosphere like?
It was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, coming back from COVID, like I wasn't sure what to expect. Like, are people allowed to actually be at the finish? But it was fun. There were cowbells. Cowbells are always fun. I just remember seeing Morgan around that last curve, and he's like, "I am so proud of you," and I'm like, "I'm so excited to be done running." And so, like, I think the worst part is I kicked it in and I like sprinted to the finish. Well, at least I felt like I was sprinting. I ran fast, and then I was like, "Oh no, I can still run fast." Like, that means I have more gas in the tank. And so it just leaves you being like, oh, I could have done all these things different. I could have ran faster. And so I think it was a super good learning experience.
Yeah.
But I crossed the finish line and our friends from GU were there. I hugged them first because Morgan's like over there with the video camera. So I'm like, where are you? I give him a big hug, and then Skip, the race director, comes over and gives me a huge hug and like douses me with cold water. So that was really nice and appreciated for sure. But
yes,
super fun.
You owe me a race report.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, you have all these ideas, right? And those are things you need to write down and remember. So it's good to reflect. You've had time to reflect. So it's a good thing to kind of write those things down. I'll make sure I send you that race report so you can fill that out, because it's for you too, not just for me. And for those that are familiar with my hard rock finish, Mercedes was in one of the first pieces of the finish segment. Morgan is actually finishing. You can hear Morgan yelling in the background, and Mercedes is cheering me in. So Mercedes was on my crew for hard rock, which I've already talked to great lengths at how appreciative I was to have you and all of my crew out there. But it was I can feel what you sensed or what you felt coming into that finish with that excitement. In hard rock, I felt that, that same way. Thank God it's here. There's that rock, there's the finish line. So yeah, no, that's tremendous. And just like you said, having, a non-COVID finish, it felt normalized, to have that group again. Did you guys hang around for a while?
Yeah. I had a bellyache, so I laid down on my belly for a while. And I felt so bad. Like, I wanted to talk to everyone and see how their races went. And I'm just like laying on my belly, like, hey guys. I have a bellyache. Like, I was so flustered, like my knees didn't hurt or something. It was just like my belly hurts. So but yeah, we hung out for a few hours. I think Morgan and I have a tendency of lingering after races, but we're just looking at it as being supportive and having fun. So hopefully other people won't see it that way. But it was such a fun course. We wanted to see people come in because it's an out and back. I passed the majority of people on the course at some point, whether they were at mile like 16 or 25, and there's just a small loop. So I got to say hello and like, good job, keep it up, to almost every runner on the course. So like, you're kind of building that relationship and you want to see them finish. And so it was awesome.
That's awesome. How was it? I recently read a post, and I don't want to make any negative light of the post, but and maybe I should, but a woman had posted that she had passed a man and he made some kind of negative comment like, oh, I guess I should start running now, or something, stupid like that. How was it for you? Did you feel like everybody was very encouraging? Did you run into anything, negative like that?
No.
Oh, good.
Everyone was
That's what I was hoping you would say.
That was great. So good. Like, I remember passing so many guys on the out and back, and they're like, wow, like the women are crushing it today. And it's like,
good. Yeah. That's the way it should be. Good.
And then on the back half, like I saw some guys and they were just like, wow, like they were so supportive. They're like, go get it. Like, I'm walking, keep going. So that was kind of a fun dynamic.
Good. I'm very relieved to hear that my sex behaved themselves.
Yeah. If I heard something like that, I'd be like, then come chase me. Why don't you? Like, let's go.
Good for you. Yeah. Have a comment prepared.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So let's go back to, you initially talked about, you're running for Solomon. And what does that entail? What does that look like?
So I'm on their ambassador pro squad. So I think they have like 4 levels. They have their athletes and then they have their pro squad. I think they pick like 20 from the US, and then they have ambassadors and then like fan clubs. So I'm in like
Excuse me.
the pro ambassadors. Other than that, it's pretty cool. I'm not like fully sponsored or supported or anything like that. Got to dream big, but it's been a huge step having a brand that kind of is supportive and does all these big races. So that's been awesome for sure. And I love their shoes, so that helps.
Yes, that does help. It does help. Solomon does do a lot for the sport. Do you mind talking about, do you have any type of obligations? Is there anything they expect of you in return?
I think they kind of just want you to be there and like be present in the running community. I think these days a lot of it has to do with social media. So they're hoping that you're kind of like a face to the brand. Mm-hmm. And then if people have questions, you're there to answer them. Kind of just having that like that sense of community for the running group. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm still figuring it out as we go. I think social media has kind of been the new way of marketing for companies. And so I think they like handpick people that they think represent what they believe in. And so Solomon's belief is time to play, like get outside, get outdoors, enjoy the mountains. And I feel like my lifestyle kind of supports that. So it works out really well because I love their products and I love trail running and I love the community. And so it's a pretty mutualistic relationship from my side. Hopefully there's too.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah. I mean, it is a match, that's great. There's other brands out there where, I kind of wonder why people feel they need to, be a part of it, because I don't know, it seems like the brand is asking more than what they're giving, especially of their people. So.
And I've definitely noticed that just being on Instagram every day, you get either like, hey, do you want my coffee shaker or something? You get so much spam, and everyone has an ambassador program. So to find the companies that actually mean it and are providing you something for what you're providing them is really hard to find. And once you do find it, it's like, don't let go. But making sure that you're looking into the companies and they're not just using you for your pictures and your posts, and you're not selling your soul for a company that just sees you as a number. I think that's hard to find.
I agree. Yeah. It's definitely, and I talked about this on a previous podcast, how it's just evolved to kind of a marketing machine, like you were talking about, like when I ran for Sportiva and Innovate, like there was nothing, we didn't have social media, like there wasn't like, and then like it evolved, and, when I was running for Hoka, it was like, we want to see this many posts, and it's just like, I mean, I'm not a hashtagger. If anybody looks at my post, there is hardly ever a hashtag on there, and there's hardly ever a picture of me, because I hate have pictures of me. So, it's always my dog or the scenery or something, but, and it's for certain people, right? Like, there are certain people that are very comfortable with that and very comfortable with social media. I was a different generation. So that's not, that's not my prerogative, but I mean, for yourself, like your social media, you've got a great personality for it, and you do some fun stuff with it. So like, if people aren't following you, what's your account?
Yeah, I'm at Science Sadie. So Science, ScienceCedes, Science Sadies. I never spell it out loud. I try to be funny and motivating, and so I don't know if I come off as funny or if people get my jokes. I'm not sure.
I get them. So I will put that in the show notes. So, if people want to follow you, or reach out to you and ask questions, like you talked about with the Solomon program, there's a lot of people out there that would love to learn more about that type of things and how can they be involved. Because it's nice to be a part of the community, and be a part of, especially a brand that really, represents the sport very well. And I think Solomon does, like I said, such a wonderful job with that. So that's
Definitely.
tremendous.
I also have to give a shout out to Goo Energy Labs. My friend Celia works for them. She's our marketing person, and I'm on the Salty squad, and they're also awesome. They help fuel my adventures because ultra running, I eat a lot and I couldn't afford it without them. So that's been awesome. Yeah, and it's family owned. They supported Lake Sonoma too. So it was cool having like my two main sponsoring people at that race.
Coach's birthday is coming up, so if you want to talk to Goo and see if they have any of the liquid lemonade gels, you can tell them to send them my way.
That's fine. We just snag some of those. Oh, but one thing you're gonna love, and I think you should share this with the world. I can't take credit for it. It was Keely's idea, but she has like the reusable flask, and you can fill it up with liquid gels.
Nice.
So she just put 3 in there, smashed it, and like she's got 300 calories. She's good to go.
That's awesome.
And then Celia with Goo mentioned that you can put on like a Hydra Pack or a Solomon nozzle, so you don't get it all over your face.
That's beautiful.
I've yet to try it. So
that's a great idea. Great pro tip right there. Awesome. Anything else that we'd be remiss if we left out?
A crew is super important. So I'm super appreciative for Morgan being out there handling me bottles, and the hardest part's like getting them back in the vest. Just being at the aid stations and seeing smiling faces like his was awesome to get me through the heat and to that next aid station. So yeah. And for your coaching, it's been huge. Without you, who knows, I'd probably still be like wandering around the mountain somewhere and not any faster. So I'm super appreciative of all you guys being there and all the support. So
awesome. Thank you, Mercedes. Thank you for your time. Congratulations once again. That was phenomenal. So proud of you. And what's the next adventure?
I don't know. We got some ideas. We're gonna have to talk.
Yeah, we'll talk more then.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mercedes.
But yeah, thank you so much.
Well, congratulations to Mercedes once again. A 5th place female finish and 13th place overall finish is just outstanding. I was so psyched for her. Very excited by her. I want to wish good luck to Morgan Elliott, who is racing this weekend at the Run Rabbit 100 miler. A bunch of my athletes will be lining up here pretty soon. The fall races are upon us, and it is extremely exciting. I only mentioned Morgan because obviously he'll be listening to this podcast due to his proximity to Mercedes. But good luck to everyone, not only my athletes, but to all of you who are lining up in the next few weeks. And I want to thank those of you that reached out to volunteer or tried to volunteer with me at the Georgia Jewel 100 miler. I look forward to that aid station this weekend. If you are running Georgia Jewel, I will be at the Snake Creek aid station. Not that I expect you to remember that if you're racing, but please say hello if you go by. I will be there both Friday and Saturday volunteering at that aid station. We've got a great crew out there. Should be a lot of fun. I look forward to seeing folks out there and being a part of the race to this capacity. It's really a joy to be able to volunteer and captain an aid station. So thank you for that opportunity, Franklin and Jenny Baker. You guys are phenomenal. Do an amazing job with your race. So good luck to all of those lining up there this weekend. I can't wait to share in your experiences. Aside from that, man, like I said, 1 million people are racing this fall. I should have some spots coming open for coaching. So if you are looking for coaching for, perhaps 2022, you have a goal event that you want to talk about, let's do that. Let's start with talking about, we were just reviewing the book, Start With Why. I think it's a fantastic book, and it's a fantastic question. Let's start with why. Let's talk about why you want to run that race. Talk about your ideas, your goals, and let's make sure that your why for coaching is right. Am I a right fit for you? Great conversation to have, especially at this time of year where we're wrapping up. Make sure you get through your goal race first. I want you to concentrate on that. And then afterwards, if you want to have a conversation, feel free to reach out. My contact is through my website, mrrunningpains.com. All my information is on there. Contact, old podcasts are on there. Newsletters are on there. And I am still working on the September newsletter. It has been crazy here with the cross-country coaching and all my kids' activities. So my time has been stretched thin. But I still plan on getting that out here. So if you haven't subscribed, please do so on my website, mrrunningpains.com. You can subscribe there. If you want to support at the Patreon level, if you feel you can financially support the podcast, greatly appreciated. The Patreon link is also on there. There also is a link to my website and the Patreon in the show notes. I sincerely appreciate all those that do support me in this podcast and all my ventures through my YouTube channel, through the newsletter. It helps me keep doing all of these things. Obviously they take time and resources, and I appreciate that support. It means more than I can say. Other things coming up, 2 weeks till the Naturalist. I am so looking forward to racing the Naturalist. I've signed up for this race so many times. It is a 50K in Western North Carolina. Goes up Wyabald, which is right on the AT. So excited to see some new trails, meet some new folks, and see some old friends. I know a lot of people are going to be lining up at the Stump Jump 50K in Chattanooga. I wish them great luck. That looks like it's going to be such an awesome race with a great field. So, and they've changed the course. So I hope that everybody just has a great time out there at the Chattanooga 50K. I know the Yeti 100 miler is coming up as well. I've got a ton of athletes that are racing that. So those racing Yeti, good luck to all of you. I think that's phenomenal. I hope you guys have a great time. Man, there's so many things coming up. No Business 100 is also coming up. I've got a slew of athletes that are going to be out there. And good luck to you if you guys are going out to No Business, as well as Rim to River. I know that's coming up. So, man, busy fall. Really cool. Here on the East Coast, we are just cranking along. So, man, great stuff. Awesome. I can't wait to see how everybody does. And I hope you are doing well and enjoying your running. I know this weather has changed for us in Western North Carolina. I hope wherever you are listening to this that you are safe and sound. I know that out west the fires have been ravaging and bad, and COVID numbers have been going up. So please stay safe. Keep running, my friends. And I look forward to talking to you next time on the MR Running Pains podcast.